Well, I guess we'll just do it with the crackling, and it'll be like we're on vinyl today.
It's a 78 interview.
So a little bit of crackling, but you're calling from Austin, Texas?
Yes.
It is great to meet you over the phone, Guy Forsyth. And you were co-founder of Asylum Street's Bankers from the 90s.
That is correct. I did start that band.
That is pretty cool. And you've opened for some huge names, Ray Charles, B.B. King, just to name a few.
Yep, I've been doing this for a while and played on some large festival bills and gotten to share stages, some at the same time and some opening shows for a lot of names. Been doing it a while. And that's, of course, very satisfying because it's nice to have any sort of place at all in the great river of American music. There's so much. It's nice to be on a bill with somebody that you've been listening to your whole career.
So when you met them, did you get to meet them backstage or have a conversation with Ray Charles or B.B. King?
So the story about meeting Ray Charles is kind of fun. It was at the Pure Blues Festival. The Pure Blues Festival is a big blues festival in Belgium. And at the busiest time, there's about 20,000 people there. But when we played, it had just started, and this goes back a while, but we opened the show. So when we played there, maybe about 5,000 people there. Ray Charles was performing at that time with almost an orchestra. He had a huge horn section and a string section, and there was a lot of turnover as they changed the stage at the Pure Blues Festival for his performance, and they set up, and we were very excited. And Ray Charles was in his limo. He had arrived in a limo that you could see from backstage, but he hadn't come out of it yet. And the band went up and they started, and they did 3 tight, excellent instrumentals. And Ray still hadn't come out of the limo, so they all look at each other and reach down, pull out charts, and start playing some instrumentals that they didn't, that they hadn't really polished. And this went on for a while. We were wondering what was up, is he okay? Whatever. But when he finally emerged from the limo, he was flanked by security guards, and there was no opportunity to interact with them at all. I guess when you're Ray Charles, and at that particular level, you get to dictate the terms of your labor, and that did not include fraternizing with the other band.
Oh.
I met B.B. King. B.B. King was tremendously magnanimous, and when he got older in his career, he didn't do this as much, but when I was coming up, he would wait around to the end of, after the show, he would meet everybody who wanted to talk to him.
Oh, wow.
He was wonderful. Yeah, he was exactly what you would want someone in that position to be, because he was purposely being accessible to his fans and had a wonderful air of gratitude around what he was getting to do, which was fabulous. He was on a bill with Albert King that time that I saw him, and I had a friend who was playing in Albert King's band. Albert King had come into town the day before and was sort of doing the gig with a pickup band of excellent musicians, but people he hadn't played with before. I'm a huge Albert King fan. I don't think there's any more influential blues guitarist ever. I think that his approach to string bending and soloing is pervasive in almost every guitar player you hear today. A lot of people talk about the importance of Robert Johnson in their music, but they sound a lot more like Albert King. I don't think Stevie Ray Vaughan wouldn't have sounded like Stevie Ray Vaughan without the influence of Albert King. But his show, he came into town and rehearsed earlier, but he was dissatisfied with the band on stage, and he dressed the band down to the audience and left a horrible taste in the mouth of the audience. You're seeing somebody that was a real hero, because I got to meet him before he went on stage, and I talked to him. I'm a huge fan, but he was frustrated and just dissing the band that he had rehearsed and brought, and apologizing to the audience. The audience was just like, nobody knew how to feel. And then after that, B.B. King came on stage and turned the house around on a dime. Just by part of that was the fact that he was used to working with his own band. He had his own band with him, and the mood was so positive it just erased the negative experiences of the Albert King set. I think that Albert King was probably also feeling like it's hard to do a good job with a pickup band when placed next to B.B. King, that old school sort of head-cutting attitude that you see a lot in the older generation of musicians.
Could it have been that Albert King was just having a bad day that day?
I'm sure.
It would be hard not to
true.
be able to have bad days. Like, you always have to be on. Or to just have, like, a really good energy that B.B. King has naturally. And that he can do that. Like, it's not for everyone to be able to people before, after, during the show, you know?
Right. It is difficult as a performer when you are not at your best, when there is something else going on, to be able to put on a show. I have a record that I did, not the one that I'm publicizing right now, but a record that I did before this. I titled The Pleaser, which is my personality type. I think that one of the reasons why I became a musician is that I do like to make people happy. I like this job because if I do it right, it makes people happy. And
right.
you know, you as a performer, you get to see that in real time. What a great payoff that is. What an easy thing to become addicted to. It's a wonderful thing to get to do, to get to participate in. But also, if you aren't feeling well, if something is going on difficult in your life, being a performer can be difficult. It's hard to put that on and be authentic at the same time.
Let's talk about that EP, Rider, that has just come out. Your music has changed quite a bit since you've become a dad. When did you become a dad?
My eldest is 16, and I have a 13-year-old as well. Becoming a parent tethers you to the world in a way that I could not have imagined beforehand. There's a feeling of responsibility that goes far beyond anything that I had experienced, because it's a huge responsibility. You know, you don't want to mess it up. It puts things on a timeline in a way that I did not experience earlier. So it's an amazing thing. And yeah, I guess it has changed the music that I've made. But I've also always been a fan of a lot of different types of music. Even before I became a parent, I had an epiphany at a certain point where I wasn't going to try to restrict my artistic impulses to any one genre, because my heroes didn't do that. You know, when you try to funnel your creativity through any one particular aperture, there are benefits to that, but also there's limitations, and you need to follow your inspiration. You have to find those things that matter to you. And although I definitely consider myself like of a pleaser mentality, and I definitely want to make music that people enjoy, I also know that it has to matter to me in order for it to come across. You know, you have to trust that the thing that you bring to the table as an artist is your perspective, and you have all these infinite possibilities of things that you could do. It has to be something that matters to you in order for it to really resonate and be valuable to people.
Do you feel like any of your writing from, let's say, Asylum Street Spankers in the 90s, when your kids listen to that, do you feel like you should talk about that and how different you are then than you are now in their eyes?
I think that all the different periods of time that you work as an artist are valid. And sometimes the first things that you might write when you know the least about your craft have a certain power to them, because you can break any rules if you don't know what they are.
Right.
And so that's powerful. And I guess when talking about music that I've made with my kids, there's drugs and sex and all sorts of influences that traditionally as a parent, you know, you're going to need to be careful about navigating. But
right.
also you need to be truthful about them too, because kids can smell bullshit.
Yep.
You absolutely, you know, like are not going to put one over on your kids for all time and conceal the fact that you are a human being.
Right.
So you know, those are important things to talk about. And everything stays the same even as they change. So I think that there are songs that I wrote in the 90s that I'll play later on today. And there's stuff that I wrote at that time that I probably will never go back to. It really depends on the song. And when you find something that resonates, that just seems like the truth enough that you can continue to go back to it and feel good about singing it, I think that's important. The reason why certain songs stick around all through your lifetime, even though you were exposed to them maybe in your teenage years when you are like a sponge absorbing sounds.
Right.
Those things stick with you because they resonate. They're important to you. Why? I don't know. Just it would be you'd have to do it on a case-by-case basis, from person to person and by song to song. But there are reasons why those things stick around, why they become earworms, and why they nourish us and continue to nourish us.
Yeah, and they could be instrumentals even. Like, it doesn't have to be like the words or meaning. Like, there's songs that I hear from the 80s and 90s. I hear them now and I'm listening to the lyrics and I'm like, wow, that is not how I took it when I was younger, you know?
Yeah, very, very much so. It is very interesting when you hear a song that you know, but you haven't really analyzed it.
Right.
That's part of an interesting thing about the delivery system of music. I'm definitely a lyrics guy. I know that I want to know what is being said. I know that when I'm writing, I'm definitely trying to put things together in a way that I think makes sense structurally. But some of my favorite songs, it's hard to analyze them at all. A certain amount of chaos exists in all of this. And even if you, as a songwriter, try really hard to create something with an intent, once it leaves you and goes into the ether and someone hears it, they're going to take something totally different from it. That's just part of, and that's an interesting thing about art in general, but it's all subjective. All of this is subjective.
So when you're writing, do you think about the music first or the lyrics first?
There's no one way that works all the time. And okay. I've dreamed songs and woken up and just written them down with almost no conscious attempt to write them. I've had phrases that I've kept in notebooks and then in the notes section of my phone for years before they finally find the song that they emerge in. I've had guitar licks that have turned into songs that I've just fooled around with on guitars for I might once again carry them around for a couple of years not knowing what to do with them until the other part comes along. There's no one way to get into the process, because I'll free write, I'll sit down with a title, I'll sit down with a concept of something that I really want to speak about and not know at all what the title or the melody or even the genre is until it starts to form. There's no one way to do it. I've worked with other people that have created musical beds and then written lyrics to go over. Yeah. There's no one way to do it. All of these ways are ways that have worked at certain times.
Right.
I think that it's really useful to do a bunch of free writing to try to distill what it is that you're trying to communicate. But you can also just like hum a melody and go, I really like this melody, but I have no idea what the song is yet. And you just have to live with it until it shows up. I call that waiting underneath the song tree, waiting for something to drop. I'm a dedicated instrumentalist, and I like the playing of the instrument. I like the physical experience of playing music and playing with other people. But I've also written a lot of things just using computers, using cutting and pasting regions on programs like Logic, which still ends with me having a song that I can, at some level, at some super casual level, perform on my own. Because eventually, for me, to feel like a song, it needs to hold together in that sort of way. It needs to have a structure in its delivery that makes sense. That's why it feels like a song and not just a whole bunch of chaos.
So when if you make a song on a computer, you want to be able to play it live. You play multiple instruments. You started on harmonica?
I got a harmonica for Christmas when I was 16. My dad was a bookseller. He sold travel books and maps. Had a business that he started after working for TWA for a while. He started a business called Forsyth Travel Library in our garage, where he would send out Berlitzes and maps and travel guides that people would order by mail. And so he also would go to meetings of booksellers and conventions and stuff. And one year he came back with a copy of the Country and Blues Harmonica on the Klutz Press by John Gindick, which came with a harmonica and a cassette tape. I was 16 at the time. I got that and taught myself how to play and carried the harmonica around in my pocket. Later on that same year, I started hanging out with my friend Grant Watts, who played some guitar, and started to pick up guitar from watching other people play. And since then, I've learned how to play a lot of different instruments, stringed instruments in general. I can play a little bit of keyboards, although I haven't spent much time doing that. Guitar, mandolin, ukulele, banjo, bass, acoustic and electric guitar in standard and open tuning. I do a lot of percussion, hand percussion.
Oh, cool.
Strange instruments like the kazoo, the bowed saw. In the Asylum Street Spanker days, we looked for as many different strange acoustic instruments as we could find. And
you could tell. Yeah. So the new EP, Rider, you've got 4 songs. Are you going to be touring with these new songs?
Oh, yeah. I've been pretty close to Texas, just in the region in the Southwest, mostly since the pandemic. Still got a 13-year-old at home, and so I still have some family responsibilities that I don't wish to miss.
Yeah.
But I will be touring the record and should be coming out to the West Coast in February. All of the songs on the EP are produced and have multiple instruments and this sort of lush oil painting approach that you can do in the studio. But also, I can do all of these as a solo acoustic artist, and I'll play them with my band as well. Because if it's a good song, it should hold up to any sort of treatment that you put it to. You should be able. A good song, you should be able to just sit down with a ukulele and sing. Like you can do that with 9 Inch Nails songs. They sound a little weird, but you can do it, and they work.
Well, I've been listening to Chris Cornell acoustic stuff, so even he's taken some Audio Slave and broken it down with just him and a guitar. And you're exactly right. If it's a good song, it'll hold up and it'll sound just as good. Yeah. There's,
what's the energetic transmission that this song is suggesting?
Yeah.
And I think that if you can't do that, then probably there's something missing in the whole equation that you got to go back and take a look at. It should be able to hang together on its own. And
do those things just jump out at you? Like if you don't have that, when you go to play it, just you and a ukulele, and it doesn't sound like it's standing up to it. How do you figure that out?
I think that the litmus test has a lot to do with you're presenting it to somebody. And if they get it, then it works. If they don't get it, then what is the thing that's missing? Because there should be a human experience in a song. It's a way of communicating with people. Sometimes the thing that you're communicating is energetic as opposed to telling somebody a story. Songs work different ways, and performing material works different ways. You can be, storytelling, deliberately telling somebody a story, like that has a beginning, a middle, and end. And it can also be the late night voodoo drum sex ritual, which music so often is, which isn't about making a statement. It's about an energetic transmission, and that can exist in solo performance and with even with the ukulele as well. But it has to be real. Where is it? What's the thing you're trying to do? You can play Green Onions on a harmonica or on a ukulele, the instrumental, and it sounds like Green Onions. It's like it's not going to have the same power of Booker T and G's, but chordally, it's a structure. You could play that on any instrument, and it would be that thing if you can play it. If you have the instrumental chops to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
You can play it on kazoo, but it's something at all.
Thank you so much for taking the time with me today. And everybody, check out Rider by Guy Forsyth. It's on all of the streaming platforms. And do you have this on vinyl for us? Since we've been talking.
Yes, I'll do another EP after this, and I'll combine them and do a vinyl release. I'm taking advantage of the news cycle.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, we look forward to it. Thank you so much for taking the time with me, Guy.
Thank you very much, Dana. Have a great day.
You too.